The Stonewell mansion towered over the city like a palace, all glass, marble, and perfection. Inside, every corner gleamed. Every luxury was at its peak, but one sound had been missing for 10 long years. The voice of Amelia Stonewell, the only daughter of billionaire William Stonewell. Amelia had been 8 years old when tragedy struck. Her mother's sudden death in a car accident left her shattered. From that moment, she refused to speak. No therapy, no specialist, no amount of wealth could bring her voice back. Doctors called it selective mutism. Her father called it heartbreak. Now 18, Amelia moved silently through the mansion, a shadow in the hallways, lined with priceless paintings and sparkling chandeliers. Her days were routine. She awoke before dawn, slipped out to the garden barefoot, and sat beneath the giant oak tree, the one that stretched, its branches wide like protective arms over the Stonewell estate. There she sketched birds, flowers, faces, and fragments of memories she could no longer voice. Her sketches were beautiful but tinged with sadness, birds with broken wings, flowers drooping in heavy rain, faces without mouths. Each stroke seemed to whisper what she could not say aloud. William watched her from the balcony, chest tight with helplessness. He had tried everything. Therapists flown in from around the world. Cutting-edge treatments, sensory rooms, and private tutors all failed. No one could penetrate the wall Amelia had built around herself. "Why won't you speak, my angel?" he whispered one morning, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "What can I do to bring you back to the world?" Amelia didn't answer as usual. She simply continued to sketch, her pencil moving gracefully across the page, her mind in a world of its own. It wasn't that she didn't love her father. She did, deeply, but the world outside her garden felt distant, sharp and unsafe. Amelia's silence wasn't just grief, it was a shield, a way to protect herself from the world that had already taken so much. Little did William know, the key to unlocking her voice wouldn't come from wealth, therapy, or privilege. It would come from someone entirely unexpected, a boy, from the neighborhood outside the Stonewell gates, someone who had nothing to offer but kindness, patience, and an open heart. And that boy would change Amelia's life forever. Just a few miles from the Stonewell mansion, the world looked completely different. The streets were cracked, houses crowded and worn, and streetlights flickered weakly against the gray evening sky. This was Rivers District, where life was hard, and every small success felt like a victory. But here lived Jamal Rivers, a 12-year-old boy with a spirit brighter than the sun. Jamal's mornings were filled with work, not leisure. While other kids rushed to school with backpacks, he rolled along the streets with a bag collecting recyclable cans. Every bottle and can mattered. Every penny helped his single mother cover bills, groceries, and rent. Despite the struggle, Jamal smiled easily, laughed loudly at small jokes, and carried a warmth that drew people in. He had little, but he had heart, and that heart was enough. One afternoon, while making his usual route toward home, Jamal passed the grand gates of the Stonewell estate. The enormous mansion glittered like a fortress, untouchable, untouching. But under the giant oak tree in the garden, Jamal noticed a girl. She was alone, sitting quietly with a sketchbook in her lap. Her posture was still, her head bowed, her hair falling like a curtain around her face. He hesitated, unsure if he should approach. She didn't look like anyone he knew, but something about her isolation struck him. He took a step closer. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, voice steady but kind. Amelia's head lifted slowly. Her eyes, wide and curious, met his. She didn't answer. She rarely did. Jamal noticed her sketchbook. "Wow, your drawings are amazing," he said, pointing at a page showing a bird with broken wings. "Even birds with broken wings can fly again, you know." The words weren't magical, but they touched something deep inside Amelia. A flicker of emotion crossed her face, a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and something she hadn't felt in years. From that day forward, Jamal visited every afternoon, speaking to her about his small adventures, school stories, and silly jokes. Amelia didn't speak back, not yet, but she listened. And more importantly, she trusted him. For the first time in 10 years, Amelia felt a sense of connection, not through wealth, not through therapy, but through kindness, patience, and understanding. Jamal didn't know it, but he was about to change her life forever. Days passed, and Jamal continued his visits under the giant oak tree. Every afternoon, he would sit at the gate talking softly, telling stories about school, his friends, and the little adventures of his day. Amelia didn't answer, not with words, but she began to show subtle signs of life. She would lift her head, her eyes following his movements, sometimes even letting a small, shy smile escape. One late afternoon, the sun poured golden light across the garden. Jamal had brought something special, a tiny origami bird, folded with care from a scrap of newspaper. "I made this for you," he said, holding it out. "I know it's simple, but I thought you'd like it." Amelia stared at the small paper bird, her fingers trembling. The folds were uneven, the edges slightly torn, yet Jamal's sincerity made it perfect. She pressed it gently to her chest, as if holding a secret treasure. Jamal leaned closer, whispering softly, "Do you like it?" For a long moment, Amelia didn't move. Then something miraculous happened. Her lips quivered and a soft, shaky sound escaped, barely audible but unmistakable. "Beep, bird." Jamal froze, his eyes widening in disbelief. "You said something?" he whispered, leaning closer, afraid to miss a single sound. Amelia's eyes glistened with tears as she repeated a little stronger, a little clearer, "Bird." Jamal's face lit up with pure joy. You talked," he whispered. "You actually talked." Tears streamed down Amelia's cheeks as she clutched the origami bird to her chest. Her voice was faint, trembling, but it was real, alive. She managed to whisper again, "Thank you." Hidden behind the hedges, her father, William Stonewell, had been watching silently. His chest felt tight, tears forming in his eyes. For 10 long years, his daughter had remained silent. Specialists, therapists, and all the wealth in the world had failed to bring her words back. Yet here she was, speaking for the first time, not because of money, not because of fame, but because a kind-hearted boy had believed in her. William rushed forward, kneeling beside Amelia. "You spoke, my angel, you spoke," he whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. Amelia looked at Jamal, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You helped me," she said softly. In that moment, Jamal realized something extraordinary. He hadn't just given Amelia her voice. He had given her hope, trust, and the courage to reconnect with the world she had shut herself away from. The silence that had ruled the Stonewell mansion for a decade was finally broken, and it began with a single precious word. The golden light of late afternoon bathed the Stonewell garden, filtering through the oak leaves and casting dancing patterns on the grass. Amelia sat quietly, clutching the tiny origami bird Jamal had made. Her lips had moved, spoken words after 10 long years of silence. Every heartbeat felt new, every sound around her vibrant, almost alive. Her father, William Stonewell, knelt beside her, tears streaming down his face. The man who controlled empires, skyscrapers, and millions of dollars now felt powerless in the face of his daughter's silence. But now hope surged through him. "Amelia, my angel." "You spoke," he whispered, voice breaking. "You actually spoke." Amelia looked up at him, her eyes glistening. Her voice trembled, but carried warmth and gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. And then her gaze shifted to Jamal, the boy whose patience and kindness had achieved what all the wealth in the world could not. "You helped me," she whispered to him, a faint smile breaking across her face. Jamal grinned shyly, shrugging as if to say, "I didn't do much." But William shook his head, overwhelmed with gratitude. "No, Jamal," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You gave her something we could never buy. You gave her hope, you gave her voice, and you gave our family a future." From that day forward, Jamal became a frequent visitor at the Stonewell mansion. William made sure his family had every opportunity they needed: school, food and support, but more importantly, Amelia's voice continued to grow. She spoke in small sentences, laughed softly, and slowly began to reclaim the life she had hidden from. Her drawings, once muted and sad, now overflowed with color and life: birds soaring, flowers in full bloom, skies painted with sunlight. And every time she spoke, every time she laughed, Jamal was there, reminding her gently that the world could be kind. One afternoon, as Jamal handed her another tiny origami bird, Amelia looked at him and smiled. "You healed my wings," she said, her voice steady, her eyes shining. Jamal smiled back. "You were always meant to fly," he said simply. William watched, heart full, realizing a truth he had never understood. Wealth could buy comfort, influence, and luxury, but it could never buy love, patience, or the courage to heal. And so, the billionaire's daughter, silent for a decade, had finally found her voice. She had found her laughter, her heart, and her hope. All because one kind boy saw her not as a wealthy girl or a patient, but as a person who deserved to be heard. From that day on, Amelia's world was no longer silent. She had begun to truly live.